Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadankitam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavascha Shri Rupam Sagar Jatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Shri Lalita Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindeshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarobhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnevbhyo Namo Namaha नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणी निर्विशेषाय शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणी जयो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा So I welcome once again you all to the second chapter, third session. Yeah. So before we start that, so we had Ekadashi on Thursday. So hope we all could chant our rounds, whatever we thought of. Yeah. So and say how many did fasting? Did anyone do fasting among us on Ekadashi?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Very good.
Hare Krishna, yes, Prabhuji.
Nice. Nice to know that so we are doing Ekadashi Vrat as well. So those who are not doing, so you can also think of it and then start. If it's and then there are various ways also, right, to do Ekadashi Vrat. So there is Nirjal and then eating fruits, and then there are other say options like Sabudana Khichdi and all, right? So there are different ways how we can do Ekadashi, but the only thing is we should avoid grains. Yeah, so we should avoid grains and pulses. Yeah, rest all things can be consumed. It depends upon the body also, right? So if the body needs are there and then someone is on medication and all, right, so they can have the other say mentioned food, right? So for Ekadashi Prasadam, so there are a lot of varieties which you can prepare. So if you Google it, right, so ISKCON, so on Ekadashi, what we can prepare. So there is a list. So you can download that PDF and then you can do it. Yeah. So best is Nirjal, but yeah, Nirjal is little bit difficult. So, but usually people do only once in a year, so which is Pandav Nirjal Ekadashi, right? So which happened last month. Apart from that, so Nirjal is little bit difficult. So we can have fruits and do it, and fruits and milk is also okay. So if you can survive, yeah. Best thing is Nirjal. If not fruits and milk, if still not, then Sabudana and some other stuff, and then yeah, try to avoid uh, pulses and grains on that day. So wherever possible, yeah. So that's one thing I just wanted to cover. So we'll start from last session where we stopped. Yeah. So we covered the 47th verse. So in the last session, yeah, and then today we'll wrap the whole chapter, and tomorrow we'll begin the new chapter. Okay. So this we were actually discussing the second chapter, right? So wherein first we discussed the Arjuna Vishada Yoga still continuing, and then he surrendering, right? So those were first 10, and then after 10 to 30 were Sankhya or Jnana. So wherein we got to know that we are the spirit and not the body, yeah. And say after that Karma Kanda, say from 31 to 38, and then from 38 onwards until 52, it is Buddhi Yoga, yeah. And then post that it will be Sthita Prajna. Yeah. So we'll cover those things, and then till now, right? So there are there were other aspects which we covered, and then so now we are into this Buddhi Yoga, so wherein say Krishna actually raises the bar slowly, yeah, and then here he says that we should perform our prescribed duties, and then we should not be attached to the fruits, okay, because to the results. So if we are attached to the results, right, so then say there will be happiness, depression, and all those things are say part and parcel of it. So we shouldn't do that. So that is nishkarma karma yoga. Okay. So this verse was karmanya eva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachan ma karma phale heturbhur mate sangostha akarmani. Okay. So this is what we actually went through in the last session, yeah. And then say going forward, right? So now Krishna told that, and the other thing is he did mention that so as this is fought on the battlefield, and say, and Krishna was guiding Arjuna, right? So Arjuna needs to fight because it is on the order of Krishna, and then there will be no sin incurred, yeah. So in doing the fighting, and then here we discussed we touched the swadharma also, right? The swadharma of a kshatriya is to fight, yeah. So we'll deep dive into the other things, and we'll see wherein Krishna, right? So now he takes this Buddhi Yoga into the Sthita Prajna. So how Buddhi Yoga leads one to a complete Samadhi. Okay. So and then the next this Sthita Prajna is nothing but a self-realized soul. The symptoms of the self-realized soul, and then so how does he act? Okay. So we will get to know all those things, and then the chapter will be winded up. Okay. Yeah, and there was a question also. Some Mataji last time asked me about the soul being immovable, right? So there was a question which I don't remember Mataji's name, but she had asked. So Mataji, the answer to that is that it is in context with the material nature. Okay. So from material nature perspective, right? So we can't move the soul. So or we can't push the soul from one body to the other. Okay. So it has to happen through Krishna's mercy or through our desire to take up the next body. So we cannot say with our human effort or from our material senses, right? We cannot move the soul. Yeah. So that's the meaning of it. But spiritually, if you see, right, the soul moves from one body to the other. So the soul will be moving in, but we can't force the soul to move. So that is the essence of that question's answer. Yeah. Okay. So in the next sloka, right? So Krishna says that in Buddhi Yoga, right? So he says that when we are advanced, right? So we perform the duty in equipoised way, right? So abandoning all attachments to it. So we'll not have any attachments, okay, to the work which we have done, right? So in the previous sloka also, so we have heard that, but here he says that you'll have to be equipoised. You should not uh, be very joyful or morose. of the results. Okay, so you should feel, you should be equipoised. Yeah. Uh, so that's the focus here. And then here the focus is on yoga. Yeah. So here it is being said, if you look in, right. So the real yoga, right? Here he says yoga stat. So the real yoga here is to actually connect with the Lord, right? So in the initial first chapter also we discussed, right? So here the connection is in devotional service. Okay, so this is connection to the Lord using devotional service. So one has to follow the dictation or the path from Lord Krishna. Yeah. So, and the ideal way, right? So the ideal way to work is that we work as a servant. Okay. So we are not the proprietor of anything. Yeah. So then only we can attach the detachment. So usually in the material world, what happens is we are attached to everything, and then we feel that we are the proprietor, and then nothing will move or nothing happens. Say if I don't dictate, right? So that's our material philosophy, wherein we say that I, me, mine, right? But that doesn't happen. So until we actually observe, say, our own swadharma, right, in our varnashrama dharma, and then we actually follow the rules of our varnashrama dharma, and say we do our prescribed duties. Okay, so to satisfy Lord Krishna. Yeah. So that's the essence of this particular shloka. And then the next shloka, right? He says that Lord Krishna says that keep all abominable activities far distance by devotional service. So here, abominable activities is nothing but the material results, right? So which we hanker for. So he's giving an advice to Arjuna, saying that you should actually keep these activities, these furtive acts, right? So, and then you should get away. So if you are actually attached to these furtive acts, right? So what happens is if you are attached to the results, all right. So we are again in this material world, and then the cycle of birth and death continues. Yeah. So the right course is to follow the transcendental loving service. Yeah. So that is what is mentioned here. And so, and in the next line, it is being said that, and in that consciousness, surrender unto the Lord. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are misers. And if we want to enjoy, right? So here, Krishna says that we are misers. Okay. So whosoever wants to enjoy the purity work, right? The results, they are categorized as misers. Okay. So who do not actually engage the assets which are given in the human form to satisfy Lord Krishna, right? So those are known as misers, yeah. Because miser's job is what? Uh, to be more into the, to earn more and to not enjoy it, right? So here also, say we are more into the material senses. So whatsoever is our material desire, right? So today you say that if I get 1 crore, I'll be happy. So will we? Never. So when 1 crore comes, we'll think of, okay, now I got 1 crore. Can I get 1 more crore? Right? So material happiness never ends. And the next verse says, a man engaged in devotional service get rid of himself of both good and bad reactions, even in this life. Right? So one who is focused, right, and then who is working for Krishna, or who is doing the prescribed duties, right, or who is doing all the devotional activities in his own swadharma, right? So for him, right, the good and bad reactions. So he gets rid of both the good and bad reactions in the life, yeah. So like if at all he gets in, right? So So whatever good or bad is there, right? So he feels that he is equipoised. Yeah? So whenever there is any good which happens to him, right, he thinks of that it is God's mercy, and then he doesn't take any good or any happiness to himself. Rather, he actually surrenders it to the Lord. Similarly, when there is happiness, right? So the a devotee thinks that okay, this is something so which I got out of discount. So because it is also God's mercy, so wherein say the impact would have been much more, but I got only a less portion of it. Yeah. So that is how devotee looks into the happiness and distress. Yeah. And then here, what happens? Say if we engage into devotional service, right? So and then when we advance, right? Say the great sages also, right? Say we can take the examples of great sages where the devotional by doing the devotional work, right? So they have gone to the Vaikuntha Loka. Yeah. So the objective of our life would be to go to the spiritual world. Yeah. And then there is a comparison given here. You see the material world and the spiritual world. So below is the material world wherein we have birth. Yeah. Say birth, age old, death. Again, the cycle goes on, right? So, but if you look in the material world, right? So we don't have those things. Yeah. So there is no birth, age old, yeah, and then say we don't have disease, nothing. So and we'll be happy there, yeah. So it's all the time is spent in doing the devotional service to the Lord, yeah. And so in the material world, right? So if every step is a danger, so we don't know. So we don't know. Say what is happening in our material life, right? Do we know what will happen after 1 hour? Nothing. So every moment we are living in danger, and even Krishna has certified that say we are in a Dukhalayam. Yeah? So this is a jail. So we are in a jail. Yeah. So and say we have been put in this condition to get out of the jail. Yeah. So wherein we do our own services and then and we satisfy the Lord, then so we'll be taken out of this jail. Else, so we'll be continuing in the jail birth after birth. Yeah. So that is what is being told. So here, by thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the result of work in the material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond all miseries. Yeah. So that is being spoken in 2.51. Yeah. Yeah. And so the next verse, right? It says that the intelligent or who has passed out of this dense forest. The dense forest is nothing but the karma kanda. Yeah. So if you look, right, so all these things are karma kandas. These are Vedas basically. At the back end, right? So there are so the Vedas is like a banyan tree, right? So it has got so many branches, yeah? And then see we actually if we start also, right? So we'll be stuck somewhere. Yeah. And then so one who does the devotional service, right? He surpasses this karma kanda. Yeah. And the flowery language of the Vedas, yeah. And then he actually takes the devotional service, so which is the direct connection with the Lord, yeah. So Vedas undoubtedly they give us the knowledge, yeah. So to do what to do, but the problem is we actually read only a portion of it, or we are stuck in one side of it. So it is like your thoughts, right? These days it's very famous, right? People don't have time to go through the videos also now, right? So nobody can listen 15 minutes, 20 minutes video also. So earlier it was audio or it was reading, and then reading came to audio came to video, and then now shorts, right? In shorts, what happens? Say they actually tweak whatever is required, right? Because we need only whatever is required, right? If somebody speaks something, right? So they actually cut whatever is necessary for the publicity, and then they use it. Yeah. So that's one thing. But anyways, so in here, right? So he's actually he rises above all this, and then his focus is towards, and he becomes a little bit indifferent from other say karma kandis, right? So that is mentioned here. So he raises above the level of the Vedas or the karma kandas. Yeah, and then this is an important verse wherein we learned the Buddhi Yoga. Yeah. So once one is stabilized, right? So one who has reached the advanced stage, right? And then he knows that Krishna is the final destination, right? Then he is in Samadhi. Yeah. Samadhi is nothing but say totally say one is fixed, one has fixed his mind in on Krishna. Yeah. His devotional service is towards Krishna, or he's a self-realized soul. Yeah. And then as I said, right, he's not disturbed by the flowery words of Vedas. Yeah. And this is the highest perfection. Okay. For self realization. So, the highest perfection of Buddhi Yoga is to go into Samadhi. As a wherein you know that the only business of ours is to satisfy Krishna. So, whatever we do, right, say in our day to day activities, it is to satisfy Krishna or in the service of Lord Krishna. Yeah. So that is the self-realized person. Yeah, that is Samadhi. Yeah. And then he actually carry out the orders, say from his spiritual master and Krishna. So he gets those information transcendentally. Yeah. So that is a very advanced stage where none of us are there. Yeah. So wherein he gets all the communications, yeah, transcendentally from Lord Krishna. So that's a different stage altogether. Yeah. So but we are nowhere there. Yeah. So when your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of Vedas, and when it remains fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you will have attained the divine consciousness. Okay. And in this picture, can anyone tell who is this person and then who is this person? Anyone can raise
Hare
digital
Krishna,
hand.
Prabhuji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, this is His Grace, Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati giving Diksha to Srila Prabhupada ji.
Yeah, correct, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare
So,
Krishna, Prabhuji.
so this is Srila Prabhupada. Yeah, so who is taking Diksha from his Guru, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Swami. Okay. So he is Srila Prabhupada's Guru, so who is giving, and Srila Prabhupada is taking Diksha. Yeah. So yeah, so if we are at that, if we go to that stage, right? So then we can call ourselves as that we are into samadhi. Yeah? So which will take time. I'm not saying that it's not impossible, but yeah, it takes time. It was a nice picture, and these are the benefits of buddhi yoga. Yeah. So small representation, pictorial representation, wherein BG 2.50, right? It says freedom from good and bad reactions. The reason is, say we are following Lord Krishna, right? So, and then, so the prescribed duties and all are done. So we'll not have these bad reactions. Say, for example, say anything, right? Say we eat, it's a sanctified and sanctioned food, yeah? So sanctioned in the sense, in the Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned, right? So patram pushpam phalam toyam. So whatever we eat vegetarian food, which is actually sanctioned, yeah, and sanctified is the food which is actually served to the Lord first, and then we eat the remnants as prasadam. Yeah. So in that way, in even just an example wherein I have taken the example of prasadam, right? So eating that, so will not have any bad reactions. Yeah. And freedom from cycle of birth and death. So this is given. So if we follow devotional service, right? So we'll not have any material attachment, and then say our taste will get detached. Say if you see, right, say one thing after the other, you yourself can feel in. Say you might have actually did got detached from couple of things. So you can know by yourself, right? So before reading Bhagavad Gita or before joining this course, right, you might be having something which you slowly lose interest on. Yeah, basically the material sense gratificatory things. Yeah, at least one thing I could say that say I used to watch a lot of news. Yeah, in the past, but yeah, so these days I know I only listen the headlines, not more than that. So indifferent to Vedic literatures, yes. And this is 5.3, say the one which we spoke, right? So this is complete samadhi. So the slide before we went through it, right? And then at the end it says that now all the discussion should happen of sthita prajna, or the person who is self-realized, right? And then how does he behave? Yeah, say how does he actually act to different disturbances and all those things, right? And then how is he poised and all those things. Basically, the characteristics and all we learn in. Yeah. So that is what. So how to become fixed in Krishna consciousness. This is the ultimate goal, yeah, for us. So in this, right? Say Arjuna. Say Arjuna asks here to Lord Krishna. Arjuna vacha Tita prajnas ka bhasha samadhi tasya keshava Sthitadhin kim prabhashate kim asita vrijate kim. So he's asking, how does, what are the symptoms? How does he sit? How does he speak? A person who is in Shuta Prajna, right? So how does, what are his symptoms? So he is asking now to brief, because till now Krishna said that say the ultimate goal of Buddhi Yoga is to go into trance, right? So once you advance, then you go into the trance. So he's asking what, how does that person behave? Yeah. So here, so this is what is being mentioned. Oh Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak? And what is his language? How does he sit and how does he walk? So basically, he's asking, how does he, um, what do I say? Say, how does his symptoms look? And then how does he appear, basically? Yeah. So what would be his characteristics? He's asking. Yeah. And then this is a breakdown. Yeah. The symptoms are discussed in 2.55, and rest all are uh, the aspects of Shrita Pragya, say the qualities, basically. Yeah. So here, if you see, right, the symptoms of Shrita Pragya, so this 2.54, right, is the symptoms, right? Say, how does he speak? How does he sit? So here again in the purport, right? So there is an example which Srila Prabhupada writes in, so wherein he says that basically, if there is a rich man, right, so we can easily identify, right, in the society, so because by the way he uses his car, or the dresses he wear, or the opulences, basically by seeing it, we can guess, right, saying that he's a rich man. Similarly, we can even identify a diseased man also, right? So now Krishna is asking on similar lines, how does what are the symptoms of a learned man or the Sitam Prajna? So in this, right, so Lord Krishna says that the most important symptom is what a learned person speaks, or what a self-realized person speaks. Okay. So if a learned person speaks sense gratificatory things, or he thinks he talks about some other things, right, other than Krishna, so then he is not in trance, or he is not in samadhi. But a spiritually advanced person, right, or so one who is self-realized, right, whatever he speaks, right, he speaks in relation to Krishna. Okay. So that is the main symptom, the immediate symptom which we can guess. Yeah. So here, actually, we have Srila Prabhupada's photo, right? So if you look in, so he, wherever he was there, right? Even when he was walking or sitting, or whenever he was giving lecture, meditating, anything, right? So he will always discuss on the matters of Krishna. Yeah. So even when he will go for a walk, right? So at one time he saw when he was in the US, right? So there were huge buses, so these AC buses, right? And then he asked, he did inquire the devotees there, saying that this is very nice, and then say, can we buy it for our Sankirtan party? Yeah. So whatever he used to see, right, it was all with respect to Krishna, or any building in any location, right? He used to ask devotees, okay, so can we ask whose property is this, and then if it is in a prime location, and then if it is suitable for a temple, and he used to ask, can we negotiate and then use this building for a temple? So that's all. And one who is completely surrendered to Krishna, right? So he'll be always thinking of Krishna and how to do service. Yeah. So no matter whether he's walking, or say he's doing a meditation, whatsoever it is. Yeah. And then in 2.55 again, so the further discussions, right? So in this, we just spoken, right? So one who gives up all material desires and sense gratification, born out of mental concoction. Yeah. So here the he's actually fully in trance in Krishna, right? So here, if you see, right, the blessed Lord said, "O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of sense desires, okay, which arise from mental concoction, yeah." So mental concoction is nothing but say always dreaming how to make things better in this material life, yeah. So that is mental concoction, yeah. And when his mind finds satisfaction in self alone, then he is not, he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. Okay. So but on the other side, right? So on the material side, one actually thinks of all material things, and then say, how can I use things, right? To actually gain more material satisfaction. So that is always there in, and he dreams. Say, for example, right? Say a man is habituated of smoking, and then he's in some fantasy smoking, thinking of, okay, so um, what will I do if I get 2 crores money? Yeah, what will happen if I do? I'll become a king. Yeah, and all those things will be running on his mind. But devotee, right? He knows he is happy with his own lifestyle. Yeah, and he knows that say Lord Krishna is the supreme, and then so he has to satisfy. He meditates on them, on him, and then does all services. Yeah. So he doesn't waste his time in thinking of unnecessary things, yeah, or daydreaming. He doesn't do. Yeah. And even all these things, right? In the next chapters, right? In the coming chapters, we'll go in details wherein you'll know that the qualities and the three modes of nature and all those things will, when they'll come in, right? So the gunas we'll go through in detail there. So And the next verse says that one who is not disturbed, right, whose mind is equipoised, right? So in happiness and distress, we just spoke around, right? So how does he deal with happiness and distress? And then he's actually not attached, right? So if somebody is attached, right, then fear and anger develops, right? So that is the biggest problem in our material life, right? Because we are attached, right? That's the reason we are always in fear and anger. So we may lose something, right? So and then if we lose something, we get angry. Yeah. So but the self-realized person, right, he's not affected by all these things. Yeah, he is equipoised. Yeah. And then so here the same thing is mentioned. One who is not disturbed in his mind, even amid just the threefold miseries or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger. Yeah? It's called a stage of steady mind. So again, this is an extension of the next sloka. Okay. Okay. So in this material world, one who lives unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it nor despiting it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. Hare Krishna. Mute. Okay. Okay. Just mind your audio. Yeah. So I'm not muted all. So make sure that so if you have unmuted, then we speak. Else we don't. Yeah. Okay. And okay, where were we actually? Sorry, some disturbance, and then we went off. Okay, we were in 5-7, right? Yeah, here say this material world is full of dualities. Okay, so and
Prabhuji, 1 second, Prabhuji, you're not audible. Your mic got cut off.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Audible for me, Prabhuji.
Okay, now it is probably might be Mataji had muted all, and then I got muted.
Yeah, yeah. Yes,
Yeah,
Prabhuji.
okay, that's fine. So in 2.7, right? So we were discussing that one is not affected by good and evil, right? So because the world is full of dualities. Okay, so we even initially we read, right, in the second chapter also, sukha dukkha, right? Man, apman, these things are part and parcel of material world. So you cannot have only happiness or you cannot have only distress. Yeah, they are combination. So at times we get fever, at times we get gulab jamun, at times we get good and bad things happening, right? So it all happens. So the material world is such. Yeah. So and further, right? So in the next verse, right? Say Krishna actually describes how his senses are. Say the one who is in steady, right, or who is a sthita pragya, right? How does his senses work? So his senses work as a kurma. Okay. So in this verse, if you see, there is a word called kurma. Kurma is nothing but a tortoise. Yeah. So this I think the whole example we can the whole verse we can cover with this picture itself. So the tortoise, right? So what happens? So whenever a tortoise sees some danger, right? So then it actually pulls its legs and everything into the shell, right? And then once it sees that okay, there is no danger, and then it starts moving. Okay, so it draws all its limbs within, right, in this shell, so which becomes very hard. So similarly, a devotee, right, so he uses his senses only for the devotional service. Yeah. And then say wherever there is material enjoyment and other things, right, he doesn't use his senses for that. Okay. So and one more example is being given here of the snake charmer and the serpents. Yeah, all our material senses are compared to the serpents. Okay, so and to control them, right? To control these senses, we will have the we'll have to be like a snake charmer. Okay, so the snake charmer controls all these senses, right? So one who is in samadhi, right? He can control all his senses. Yeah. So that is another analogy which has been given in the purport. So if you read the purport, then you'll get, yeah. And the further, right? So in the next verse, right? So here, if you see, right, in this text, right? If you look in, so here Krishna says, Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasavarjam raso api yasya param drishtva nivartate. So this is very important, which is being bold and underlined and bold, right? Param drishtva nivartate. So if you have got an higher taste, right, then you lose the taste for this material things. Yeah, materials enjoyment. So here the text says, though the embodied soul may be restricted for sense enjoyment, but the taste for sense object remains. But ceasing such engagement by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in the consciousness. So whatsoever we do, right? So the senses, right? So they will have to be engaged. Okay. So you cannot stop engaging the senses because they are very active. And so for one thing or the other, you'll have to engage. Either you engage them for the Krishna consciousness or the devotional path, or they'll engage themselves in the material sense gratification. So either of things. So senses have to be controlled, and then they, because they are very active, they can't actually be ideal. So for example, in this case, right? So here also there is one example being discussed, and most of the thing, right? So most of the impersonalists, right, or those who follow the Ashtanga Yoga, they fall down actually, yeah, because they can't actually say artificially control the senses, yeah, because say for the impersonalist, right, say they think that the there is no existence of God, right? So they feel that say there is no point in actually offering anything to the Lord, and then say they don't eat a lot of things, yeah. So they artificially renounce, saying that okay, so we'll not eat all these things because and because they're not offering, and then they feel that okay, if we eat this, there'll be attachment and all those things, right? So they actually try to do it artificially, but the actual attachment to those food items or whatever it is, right? So it doesn't go. So like an diseased patient is there, right? So whenever there is a diseased patient, right, we say that some food items should not be eaten, but that doesn't mean that he loses the taste for it. Nothing, right? So once he gets out of the fever or whatever disease he had, he starts eating, right? So we can't stop that. So on the flip side, right, if you see a devotee, right, so he knows that so we can offer we can offer to the Lord, the- and then he takes the offerings as prasadam, right? So in that way, right, say he's not deprived of anything. Yeah, he's using everything in the service. Yeah. So the okay, in the next probably in the next slide, I'll discuss the examples of Haridas Thakur and others. Yeah, yeah. Even here also we can discuss it. So mostly what happens is if you see, right, I just spoke saying that the impersonalist, say, they actually get distracted, right? So if you see right here, say one yogi, right? Or in this case, I think we can take the example of Vishwamitra also. So he was actually deeply meditating. And then when Menaka came, right, he got disturbed. Yeah. So that is the problem. So these things this artificial renunciation is very difficult. Yeah. Because we can't stop the senses. Say on the flip side, right? Say if we use our senses for different services of the Lord, right? Say, say in a day, right? Say you work and then say the other time, right? You clean the temple, yeah. You cook the food, you do the garlands, yeah, and then you wash the clothes, you eat prasadam. So the whole day you engage your mind in Krishna consciousness or in devotional service, right? In that way we can engage, yeah, and then only we can we can control our senses. But if we forcefully do, it's very dangerous. And then in this age we can't do even that. So never think of it. And in the next sloka, right, it's been discussed, the senses are so strong and impetuous, oh Arjuna, that they forcefully carry away the mind even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. That's what, right? So we just spoke about Vishwamitra, right? He was into deep meditation, but the senses are so strong, right? So one small gap you give, right? So you are carried away with it. So it is very difficult, yeah? So unless we have strong determination. So here also the example of sage Durvasa Muni is being given, right? So we know Durvasa Muni and Ambarish Maharaj, right? What happened? Wherein Durvasa Muni, due to a small misunderstanding, he became angry on Ambarish Maharaj, and then he wanted to kill Ambarish Maharaj. Yeah, but say Ambarish Maharaj, being a king, say acted as a sage. Yeah, and then he was not at all disturbed, and then he engaged all his senses in Lord Krishna. Right. So what happened? The demon, which was actually um, pulled out of the mystic powers of sage Durvasa, actually it flipped. So when it came, right, then actually Lord Krishna sent his Sudarshana. So he was running helter shelter. Yeah. So that is the problem. Say if we lose our senses, our control, right? So even one single mistake, right, with the senses, we get carried away in the material world. So this is the example of say Ambarish Maharaj has been given, and then we just spoke about Vishwamitra, and here I would like to give the example of Haridas Thakur. Yeah, I think the same instance which happened with Menaka, right? So the same thing happened with Haridas Thakur, right? Do we all know who Haridas Thakur is? Anyone knows? Can raise your hand digitally.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. This time, I think Pankaj Prabhu will give chance to others. Sukant Prabhu, you can actually unmute and then tell us.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dhanavad.
Yeah, Prabhuji, Haridas Thakur is one of the disciples of Mahaprabhu.
Yeah.
He was, I believe, initially he was a Muslim by birth, and then he took shelter of Mahaprabhu, and he was called the Namachari Haridas. Means he used
Yes.
to chant 300,000 names.
Yes. 3 lakh times. Yeah. Perfect. So Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. So Haridas Thakur, right? So Haridas Thakur is a great devotee. Yeah? So who used to daily chant 3 lakh Harinam. Okay. So 3 lakh times he used to chant the holy name. So the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra he used to chant for 3 lakh times. So even if we do 16 rounds in a day, right? Say if we calculate, so to do 3 lakh rounds, it will be somewhere around 250 or 260 days. So whatever we do in 260 days, he does in 1 day. Yeah. So they are all eternal associates. So we should not anyway imitate them. Yes. We actually should not imitate them and then start doing say chanting in that fashion. So we can't do. So it's not possible unless there is Krishna's mercy, right? So we can't do. So same thing happened. So because um, he became very popular. Okay. So and then Ramchandra Khan. So in that village, right? So he was the ruler. See, he actually wanted to defame him, and then he sent a prostitute to actually disturb Haridas Thakur. So he sent it for 3 days, but Haridas Thakur said that let me first finish my chanting, and then we will discuss. So by the third day, right, so the prostitute got converted to a devotee. So that is what happens if our senses are controlled. And there is a very nice video. So in YouTube, you can locate Haridas Thakur ISKCON. So just type in, and then there is a movie, actually a short movie of 1 hour or 1 hour 15 minutes, where you'll get to know the gist of who Haridas Thakur was. Yeah. So if you have not seen, watch it. It's a nice movie. Yeah. Small 1 hour video. Though the graphics and all might not be of today's style, but yes, the content is very good. So and you'll all like it for sure. Yeah. And the I think mostly the rest of the things also, right? So they are all about the qualities only. Yeah. So next, say in the 62 to 63 sloka, right? So the process of fall down is being discussed. Yeah. So basically, we are all contemplating, or so we focus more on the objects with our for our sense enjoyment, right? So once we have we'll be looking for sense enjoyment, right? Then that lead to the attachment. Yeah, so we'll have attachment to that thing, and attachment will lead to lust. Yeah. And so lust, if it is not fulfilled, then we get angry. Yeah. And then that will get lead us to delusion. Yeah. We'll get confused, and then there is actually loss of intelligence, and we again fall down into this cycle of material pool. So that is being discussed in 62 and 63 verse. Yeah, man of steady intelligence. Yeah, so this is what has been discussed. Yeah, this is what I was discussing, right? So while contemplating the object of the senses, a person develops attachment. Yeah? So the same thing. So what happens is we actually get into the cycle and then lose our material. We again fall down in the material world. So this is being given, yeah. So in a pictorial format, objects to attachment, lust, anger, delusion, bewildered of memory, and then loss of intelligence, and then we fall down. So this is what happens. Okay. And then, but in the next sloka, right, what happens? But a person who is free from all attachment and aversions is able to control his senses through regulative principles of freedom. Um, Freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. Okay. And the other example which we can take of this anger and all these things, right? Say usually during the matches, right? Say any cricket match, right? Because in India, say we are big fans of cricket match, right? So you might have seen that when India wins, right? They actually garland the cricketers, and then they make them hero for no reason, yeah. So and then the other day, or if they lose something, right? So if they lose an important match, the very next time, right? Say they actually parade him on a donkey, or even there are instances wherein their houses were actually uh, even they go and then they break their glasses, and then they do a lot of disturbances in their houses and all those things, right? Say they throw stones and all those things. So that is one of the things which we can compare, wherein say we can't actually stop our material senses. So one, we cannot control his material senses, right? They'll be actually doing either this or that, yeah. So they can't handle anything. So that's the thing, yeah. Okay, we'll further move on. So these are more on those things only, yeah. So the strength of a devotee, right, is from the costless mercy of the Lord. So we can't endeavor anything, right, unless the Lord gives us, yeah. So because when we focus our energy towards Lord, right, so then only we'll get directions, yeah. Then only we can actually come out of these attachments, raga dvesha, yeah. So this is the next chapter, right? So the next verses, wherein for one thus satisfied in Krishna conscious, right, the threefold miseries of material existence doesn't exist no longer, because he is satisfied in his own intelligence, right? So the same example, right? So the cricket example, if we take, right, say for a Krishna conscious person, right, it doesn't affect whether India loses or wins. So he's more bothered about how he's serving to the Lord. But the general public, right, so they are bothered, yeah. So that's one thing which we can actually look in from here. And then so the next verse, right, so in 2.67, right, it has been mentioned that as a boat on the water is swept away by a strong wind, even one of the senses of which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence. Okay, so even one single um, say gap we give in for sense enjoyment, right, it goes on. So for example, right, so watching TV, say initially usually it happens, right, in a family we start actually the TV, and then we'll actually scan first. First agenda would be to actually look for some news or something. You look for 10 minutes, then you switch on another channel. So the whole idea was to spend only 15 minutes in front of the channel, but you spend more than 2 hours, yeah. So that is one of the examples which we can take here, yeah. Yeah, yeah, this is one of the important shlokas, yeah. So here, right, the comparison is being done for a spiritually advanced person and then a materially advanced person, okay. So the verse says, Ya nisha sarva bhutanam tashyam jagrati samyami yashyam jagrati bhutani sa nisha pashyato muniha. So here the comparison is done. So what is night, right? Say basically like 4 o'clock, right? Say for example 4 a.m. in the morning, right? If you look, right, either one who is looking for material gains, right? Say like who's hardworking like an ass, right? All throughout the day to earn more money and all those things, right? Either with the office pressure or so, right? He'll be awake doing some presentation, or he might be doing some double jobs or something, yeah. Or who wants to do sense enjoyment, right? So gambling, yeah, and then say intoxication and the drugs and all these guys, right? So they all awake in the night because they are very active in the night, right? So if you look, right, the druggist, the alcohol who consume alcohol and all those things, right, they are all active in the night, and then they'll not be more active in the day. So, but if you see on the flip side, right, by the time they sleep, right, say 3:34, this is the time usually you see in the major big cities, right? So most of the youth who are addicted to all these things, right, they sleep at this time only. But a self-realized person, right, he wakes up at that time. So that is Brahma Muhurta for him. He starts, he begins his day because he can focus more towards the Lord. So he starts his day, his devotional work or the devotional service. He starts by chanting and then doing Mangal Harti and all, right? He uses that time because that's very precious time. Yeah. And so, and by the time he sleeps, right, 9 p.m. or 10 p.m., these guys get activated, and then their day starts at that time. And then they'll be sleeping whole day because they have all intoxication, right? They'll get up at 12 p.m., 11 a.m. That is how their life goes on. Yeah. So that's just an example which we can think. And then this is the same thing. Yeah. Yeah. And here, right, in this verse, right, 2.70, a person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace. So here the example is given of an ocean. So the person who is actually in samadhi, right? So he's like an ocean. So it doesn't matter whether the flow of rivers is more or less. Yeah. So the problem is with the river, right? So the river may overflow and then come to the ocean. So, but the ocean is always steady, right? The person who is in samadhi, right? He is in full conscious. Okay. And then he is not bothered. Yeah. So he remains satisfied in the loving service, yeah, which gives him the real peace. Yeah. So now we'll end this chapter. Yeah. So all in all, right? So if you look in, right, so this Buddhi Yoga, right, or the essence of Buddhi Yoga is that the Lord is the supreme proprietor. Yeah. So and then He has only created both material world and the spiritual world. Yeah. So there is a verse, right? So which actually can bind this the whole discussion which we did in, right. And our job is that we use all services towards the Lord. Okay, whatever we use, right? So you may ask that why we are using these laptops and all these things. Even this is called as Yukta Vairagya. Okay. Any gadget we are using in the service of Lord is called as Yukta Vairagya because we are using these gadgets to actually talk or present about the Lord. Yeah. So we are not using this to watch movies or to play games. Yeah. If we use that, then the purpose is lost. Yeah. And to actually wind up this chapter, right? So there is a mantra from Isha Upanishad, the first mantra, right? Which actually talks about Isavashyam. Okay. So the mantra goes like this: Ishavashyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat tena taktena bhunjita magridakasya svat dhanam. So here Ishavashyam principle is being discussed. Yeah. So wherein, so we should use, so as I said, right, so the Lord has actually created the world. Yeah. And then He has given everyone a quota. Okay. And then we should use our own limit. And then say like all the natural resources which we have, right? Who has given? It's all Lord. None of the scientists have created any of these natural resources. Okay, they do R&D on it, and how do we sense enjoy, and then how do we exploit on it? Yeah. So the wind, the sunlight, all these things are being all these essentials are provided by the Lord. Yeah. So, and we should actually not overutilize or not laud it for our own purposes. Yeah. So that is the actual statement of this particular mantra. And you can understand very easily taking an example of birds. Yeah. And as say, if there is an heap of rice which is kept, or say a bag of rice is kept. So if an animal comes, right, like an bird, if it comes, it will only consume which is required for it at that particular point in time. Yeah. So it may take a morsel and then eat and then go away. But if it is a human being, right, he'll think that I should actually store this bag in my house so that I'll use it for my future coming days. Yeah. So that's the difference. So there is ample. So when the Lord created this nature, right, He had created ample facilities for everyone. So He has given ample food and shelter for everyone to live. But the problem is, so we are not following that principle, and then we are trying to overutilize, or we want to build skyscrapers and then say destroy the nature, and then so we are getting the after effects of it. Yeah. So with that, we'll end the chapters 2, and in the 72 verse, right? So the discussion is about that. This is an essence, or the complete summary of Bhagavad Gita can be understood from this chapter 2 is what is being told here. That is the way of the spiritual and godly life, after attaining which a man is not bewildered. If one is thus situated, even at the hour of death, one can enter into the God of kingdom. Okay, this is another say example or a reference which is being given. So wherein even so at the time of death, right? So even if you may not be doing devotional service all throughout the life, but even at the time of death, we take the devotional service, and then when we are leaving the body, we actually think of the Lord, then we'll also get liberated. Yeah. So with this, we end this chapter. Hare Krishna. Open to questions now. Anyone has any question? No? Okay. I saw some messages in chat. Okay. Somebody had to drop received parcel. Okay. Nice. Okay. And then there was attendance link. So just key in your attendance. Okay. Okay. And what was the other thing? We'll start at, okay. And then Mataji, how is our Bhakti Vriksha going on?
It's going good, Prabhuji. I've started taking Bhakti Riksha myself.
Okay.
Yeah, we had our first session yesterday.
Okay.
We just briefed on chapter 1. We did few questions and we read the important shlokas from chapter 1, the 1.1.
Okay.
And we had few general queries from chapter 1 and yeah, Prabhuji.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, you can join in there and then have your queries also resolved there. It's a good platform. Yeah.
We're having every Wednesday and Friday, Prabhuji.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's fine, Mataji. So I think one is in the morning and then one is in the evening, no, Mataji?
No, Prabhuji, because the morning wasn't convenient for a lot of people. We fixed it from 5:30 to 6:30 on both Wednesday and Thursday. We only made one group, Prabhuji.
Yeah, that's
because
fine because our group is small, right? So
yes,
people can join in. Yeah.
yeah, Prabhuji. Yeah. So every Wednesday we were planning to do like a summary of the particular chapter that you've taught and also go through important shlokas. And Friday session would be the sadhana form, Krishna book reading, or any
Yeah.
other general queries.
Yeah, that would be great. I think start with reading small books of Prabhupada, right? And then
Yeah.
you'll get the interest. So like perfect questions, perfect answers, and then self-realization, the path of
Yeah.
self-realization. And there are so many books, right? Even Krishna consciousness is there. And
Yeah. If you recommend few books, Prabhuji, I will start from the coming week, maybe from Friday or something. If you can send me a list of the books.
yeah, I think Mataji, all those small things, right? Maybe
Books, yes.
perfect questions and perfect answers would be best to start. And
Yeah,
then the journey to the other planet. Yeah.
Yeah,
So we
the
can,
birth and death. Yeah.
yeah, birth and death. I
And
believe
then we have Bhakti book also. And there was another book called
a guide to Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, Guide to Krishna Consciousness,
Yeah,
Second Chance.
yeah, second chance is also there. But I think
Yeah.
first start with those small books.
Yeah,
And
okay.
those
Prabhuji.
are because they can complete in 1 week, no, Mataji. So
Yeah.
if because that's a good read also, and then it gives a lot of information. And Sukant Prabhu, thank you, because I was looking for Aishwarya Mataji, right? So I was so that is how the senses don't work, yeah, at times. So Sukant Prabhu pointed out something. Yeah, thank you.
I
Hare Krishna.
apologize, Prabhuji, today for
No problem, Mataji.
Yeah, we had a